So आज के इस पॉडकास्ट में आई हैड अ कॉन्वर्जेशन विद नवेंदु झा who is the head of marketing at a US based tech startup called as Charcoal. And if you want to build a career in marketing or just want to understand what a career in marketing looks like, this podcast will help you understand the same, because we talked about so many things, from the skills required to become a marketer to actually understanding the differences between marketing a product based business versus a service based business, crafting some amazing marketing messages, along with Navendu sharing some of his insights that he learned while working on a marketing campaign for Royal Enfield. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. Can you introduce yourself to the audience real quick in terms of your background and your journey from working at Stoa to now working at Charcoal?
Whenever somebody asks this question to me anymore, right, it just kind of feels that I have done a lot in life. And it is, one of the questions that you would want to be asked when you're at the fag end of your career, which I definitely don't think is the reason. I think while I've been working for 8 years now, I still think it's the very much start of it, right? So, in a very short description scene, my career and my journey started as a marketeer, a growth marketeer in a marketing agency firm called Worldwide. This was in Gurgaon. I did 5 years with them, and my job was to service clients of all sorts of domains, be it hospitality, service, consumer products. We launched some of the very first D2C brands in India. We scaled some of the SaaS companies. The idea was just to find marketing channels for them, ensure they create good content, ensure their business grows. And in their growth, I also kind of grew and I learned a lot about marketing, right? That essentially opened doors for me to take some bit of entrepreneur plunges, work with startups. And like you said, that's where the opportunity with Stoa also came, where while I was doing a program with them, I was actually studying an alternative MBA that those guys used to offer. They were kind enough to say that, hey, you seem to be someone who has a knack for these things. Why don't you come and do it for us as well? So shifted cities, moved to Bangalore, started working with Stoa to help them do better marketing, do new initiatives. Very fun 2 years with them, grew a lot in terms of a professional, in terms of a manager, in terms of a marketeer. And that opened the most recent door for me, which I started 8 months back, a D2C company called Charcoal, right? And here I lead all revenue and marketing initiatives. Again, very interesting, very new sort of work, selling physical products as a D2C brand in the US economy. And it pushes you, it keeps you on the edge to learn, grow, and plan different things around this domain day in, day out, right?
Awesome. How is the experience like from transitioning, from a service-based business like Stoa to now Charcoal? What are the differences when it comes to marketing? Because, this is a product-based company. Stoa was an edtech company, so they were selling a program. So what do you think is the difference?
Actually, if you look at it from a bit of a far macro lens, right? Like I said, the first 5 years that I worked, I used to work in an agency. In an agency, what happens is that there is a brand that could either render a service or have a product, but you are fulfilling marketing duties for them. So if it's a river, you're on the other side of the river, right? You are basically doing everything for them. They are paying you for you to do it. So the first 5 years essentially of my career, I was at an agency helping clients of different streams, be it service, be it product, create content, distribute content, find different channels of marketing, figuring out, okay, what next influencer activation could work, what next brand film or campaign could work, figuring out what sort of ads would work, what hooks and angles would work for them, what email newsletters would work for them. So I was just doing a lot of different things. For a hotel group, we would create a marriage campaign so that, the hotels get more marriage bookings. For a phone, we would, kind of see, okay, how their flagship features are being launched, what sort of adoption and community can be built around that phone. So it was a whole spectrum of doing multiple pieces of work for different streams of clients. So I had a good flavor of working on the both service side and product side, but it was never our work. It was a client's work. We were just doing it for them. So while we would get accoladed with awards, we would get accoladed with recognition. At the end of the day, it is the company who is paying you their sort of credit, right? So I decided that if I really need to be in a position where I take decisions as opposed to execute them, I need to shift sides. That's when the first side shifting happened, and I crossed the river and joined a brand particularly, right? That brand rendered an educational program as a service called Stoa. So the spectrum is very different because now you are actually taking decisions. Now you have the support of, partners, agencies, your own internal team to do a good job at marketing. There is now also responsibility. So rather than just executing work, there is a direct responsibility of revenue, of brand lift, of marketing KPIs, business KPIs. And that keeps you on the toes because now it's your show to run. And it's really fun to kind of optimize that as well. It changes a lot from service to service as well, right? So Stoa had a 6 month long program, which essentially meant that marketing for a funnel for that sort of a program could be as small as a 2 week initiative to as big as like a 6 month cycle as well. So we had to plan a lot of offline initiatives, a lot of online initiatives. It was always on. There was never a day where you would be like, okay, work is now done. Now we'll wait till the next cohort starts, right? Because you're always on the treadmill. You always want to get the next sort of, thing going on. So it was super fun. The shift that again happened when I shifted on the brand side only, but from a service to a product company, it's also a whole lot more different because with product, what people actually want is the experience of a retail aspect of that product, but then delivered mostly through digital outcomes, given the world now revolves around digital media, right? So that's its own sort of challenge. In Stova, if I could demo a sample class and get somebody to take the program, here I have to figure out initiative solutions as to how I can kind of demo the physical product that I'm selling. How can I make them touch it, feel it, experience it, even if when they don't have it, insuate that need, insuate that energy, insuate that sort of urgency to buy it and then push the narrative out, right? So it's very different challenges, very different fun. But the good part is that the playbook remains the same, your skill sets remain the same. You kind of just every day think of doing something new, doing something fun, and as long as you enjoy doing that, things happen the way they happen.
That is very interesting. Like you said, na, ki you are crafting the experience, like the buying experience for a physical product in a digital environment. So, what do you do exactly to craft that experience in a way that the person would want to buy the product? Because obviously, digital में वो उसको touch नहीं कर सकते. They cannot feel it, right? They cannot get a grasp कि उसका quality कैसा है.
That's true, but I mean, those are the constraints that you play with, right? So you have to play with the cards that you are dealt with. But that is where your creativity, your sort of ingenuity kicks in, right? Now, if I am selling, let's say, a luxury bag, can I show the texture of the fabric? Can I, show the sort of in-hand feel of holding that product through my videos, through my content, through my user experience stories? Can I build enough trust that this is worth it, right? That is essentially what it does. And look at the examples around us, right? You might have not seen a Lamborghini, ad ever in life because they don't really do a lot of marketing. You might have not even seen a showroom for them. But just the word Lamborghini gives you a sort of sense of picture. But okay, that seems like a very premium racing car branded. How is that happening? Are they doing something different? Yes. Are they doing something which works? Yes. Those are the hacks that you also have to figure out, right? There is a clout, a flair, a sort of effect that gets created just by the way you put yourself out there, the way that you would write your content, the way that you would show your graphics, the way that you would position everything around your brand. And you just do a good job in ensuring that the persona you're catering to, they understand it, they kind of enjoy it, and you keep on building on top of it. The very fun example of this is, something that when I used to work in an agency, we worked for Eicher Motors. Royal Enfield is their main product on the consumer side that most people know, right? The bullet bike. And to be honest, with them, I realized as a very young employee trying to create, okay, what can Bullet do to make Bullet sell more, right? And in my 3-4 weeks of very rampant research and figuring it out, one thing that stuck me as an insight is nobody who actually buys Bullet at a showroom or at looking at an ad. People have already bought a Bullet inside their head. Bullet has such a effective product presence that people who want it have already bought it. Everything else is just an enablement to take that final decision of purchase. So the marketing has to revolve around that. You really can't, make somebody buy a Bullet. They've already bought it in their head. They see themselves, like especially in North India, when you have like, let's say people who are 6 feet tall, fair, chashma lagate hain, bike chalate hain, अच्छा लगता है, बहुत सुंदर भी लगते हैं. So they've already bought it in their head. They know a certain suave, class, respect, whatever, head turning eyeballs that they'll get driving. So you sum total those experiences and then you create those experiences in the channels that are given to you. And it's fun. That's the fun part about marketing also, right? You play with your constraints.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many buying touch points, right? Like if I'm making, let's say, ₹1,00,000 a month and I have great savings, then I go and buy an iPhone, right? Then there are also people who just want it for the sake of signaling. So Apple seems to be catering to both of those segments, right? Like logical buyers and emotional buyers.
The good part about this is that Apple actually consciously never does signal for it to be like an affordable sort of, system that anybody can buy, and they have a lot of buying options and pricing options, right? And this is something that across the brands you will see that a Samsung would put their maximum marketing dollars on their flagship Galaxy S series phone or their Note phone, because if they do that, their M series, A series, everything else will also get sold, right? So when you even look at Apple's messaging, they would be like, okay, the next new iPhone 16 Pro is whatever, $1499, and you can trade in up to $899. But that $899 is also like a maxed out iPhone 15 Pro, which nobody's selling or nobody buys in the first place as well, right? So they usually never put themselves lower to be open that, okay, this is attainable luxury, everybody can buy it. It's just the fact that they show the spectrum that they can deliver and offer to, that it creates a need. There are actually luxury brands which are very exclusive and recluse, and they don't want you to kind of, even be known about them, because they know that the people who would, buy them are like sort of this very minimal group of silent luxury buyers. And those brands also exist. Apple does a good job in just showcasing the far right end of it, and then everybody on the left end also want it because they want that lifestyle that they're offering. That's essentially what the play of the marketing team also is, and that's good. It works for them. Some brands have to really work hard to get it. Like tomorrow, if Oppo comes out with a 2 lakh rupee phone, you will still have to figure out, okay, why is it work? You'll question Oppo. You might not question Apple because they have done a good job, and Oppo will probably have to do that for a couple of more years till they also reach there in one way or the other. That's essentially how the game is.
Absolutely. I mean, Oppo doesn't have that level of trust. So I think people will keep questioning that.
They also know about it. It's not like they don't know about it, right? They know that the game that they are playing is a game of killing a flagship as opposed to launching a flagship, right? And they have to position themselves always as a flagship alternative. They're very well aware about that. In fact, they're far more aware in terms of the rigor that they have to put through. I mean, Apple can go 5 years also with very minimal sequential updates on their phones, knowing that their customer base will still be okay, but Oppo can't afford that, right? They will have to really push the narrative. So if you look at the last 5 Oppo flagship phones, fundamentally very different from one another. A lot of tech upgrades, a lot of promise. If this would have been Apple, they would have really done a lot with their consumer products as well. They just don't need to. They don't have the need, so they don't do it. And then Oppo is actually pushing the tech narrative a whole lot more. If you're an objective buyer and you look at a company, you would probably be like, okay, this is a company which is actually trying so hard to innovate. Huawei does a great job. Haier does a great job in doing that, right? Xiaomi also is doing a great job in doing that. But their brand is still a challenger brand, so therefore they have to play that game. And that's the world that we live in. It's okay. That's where your also skill set as a marketer, as a consumer, as a user of the product that comes out there gets questioned, gets challenged, and that's good. Essentially, it should be like that also.
I just want to ask a follow-up question on this. I think we are sort of getting into the branding side of things, right? So branding का कितना impact होता है on the product? Oppo, let's say, is trying very hard, but still they cannot match Apple. Branding में Apple obviously takes the lead. So what do you think the strong brand कैसे बनता है? And what sort of an impact does it have on the product in terms of the sales?
That's again a very intelligent question. I'll try to slice it into some small questions to answer it, right? I mean, if you look at it very objectively, what is the need for a brand to even be in the first place, right? Because if you start with the assumption that all customers are very discerning, disciplined customers, they evaluate product on how good the product is, and the need for a brand doesn't exist. If I look at all the bags out there, I see this is the most advanced bag, this is the most aggressive bag, this is my budget, therefore I will buy this, then a need for a brand doesn't exist. Then a Louis Vuitton doesn't need to sell $1,000 bag, and like some local brand doesn't need to sell a 500 rupee bag, because they know that that spectrum is there, right? But that is not the case. The need for a brand actually exists is because what you buy is not just the isolated product, right? What you buy is the lifestyle, the signaling sense that the product also brings. And that's where most people, in the name of differentiation, create something which is called a brand, right? I mean, the literal word brand actually, means something so regressive. Back in the day, when farmers had cattle and all, branding essentially used to mean that you would put your sticker on them, right? This is my cow, don't take it away from me. I mean, brand in the literal sense means that, right? I brand this mine. So it was just like a mark that, okay, this is my product, you can't copy it. This is how I'm kind of calling it, right? This is Navendu's cap. This is Yash's mic. Things like that. What it creates a sign of trust eventually, right? Okay, if it is Navendu's cap or Yash's mic, then Yash would have probably put a lot of thought in creating that mic, ensuring that, like it has nice quality, all of that. So those subjective elements of trust, loyalty, things that will make you believe in this being a nice choice is essentially what the job of any sort of good branding does, right? And that's where you have to see where you are, what category you are competing in, how much competition exists in that, why do people buy a certain product in that category a certain way. and then work towards it to create that brand out. So does it have an impact in sales? Of course it does, but it is also a virtue of how you are kind of positioning it and how much people are challenging you in that, right? You might not even have the need to do any of it, to be honest. I mean, in India, if you look at the amount of adhesive brands that exist, Pedialyte is the most famous one, right? They have all the big products that we call Fevikwik. Pedialyte is the biggest. You would not even know a second adhesive brand. अगर मैं कल को
Yeah.
market जाऊं, I would use the word Fevicol for a glue or a
Yeah.
Fevistick for a glue stick. I probably will not know. I know that maybe a Faber Castell also makes it or a Camel also makes it, but their
Hmm.
product is synonymous with the brand itself, right? So do they really need to do any branding? No. But
Hmm.
they do it because this habit has actually happened of them doing such a good job with their branding, with this sort of positioning, that it gives you a sense of belief कि फेविकॉल से चिपकाया तो चिपका रहेगा,
Hmm.
right? And that is essentially what they push for it as well. So that is the game that you have to understand. Okay, that what category you are involved in, how competitive is that, how many sort of players are in that, what differentiation you can create, and there is something, and it's a very technical thing in marketing and branding, but it's called STP, right? Segmenting, targeting, positioning. So based on these segments and targets and the way that you position for them, you kind of figure out, okay, this is what I'll do. And then you ensure that there is a track for it. Your initiatives then revolve around creating some brand loyalty, brand trust, brand affiliation. And that does have a positive effect on the sales of it. But to be honest, it can completely tank if the product gets really bad reviews. It happened right back in
Hmm.
2014 or 15 was I was in college in Delhi University. Maggie got banned because there were reports that lead is in Maggie in an amount that is not safe for human consumption, right? And within like 2 3 weeks Maggie was off the shelves and so many alternatives came for instant noodles, but
Right.
they really fixed their product, and now most of them, while they still exist as alternatives and not, Maggie is still Maggie, right? Like
Yeah.
their brand pull and brand recognition is so strong. They did so many emotional campaigns with
Hmm.
moms vouching for Maggie as a nice snack, and now they have fixed it. And if a mom trusts in Maggie, then the kid can of course trust in Maggie. A mom will never feed something bad to their kid. They also came out in the open public, accepted what was wrong, what was right. So it's always revolved around the trust that you build with your audience and how much they have faith in you and how it kind of moves from there. Right? So that's the job. That's what you have to do as a marketeer, as a brand advocate, as a sort of brand custodian for any product. And it changes from a service to a consumer product to a physical product, but you have to understand the game and then play it, because it does have an effect. It does have an impact. It could be your strongest armor. It could also be your weakest defense. So you have to just figure that out.
And in fact, when I was thinking about Maggie, they have really replaced the name noodles with Maggie. Now, when I think about momos, I get wow momos in my mind. Definitely this thing कि एक generic नाम पे एक brand को चिपका देना, that just is very powerful.
Yeah, that's the level of effort that they have put in it. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. To create a product category that becomes synonymous with your brand is
Hmm.
actually a very tough thing. It's one of the it's like the gold mine. That's when you know that your marketing, everything has hit home. That is when you're in the most safest place, right? Tomorrow, if you create a adhesive tape brand, but people start using your brand's name, let's say Hands Up Last as opposed to Band-Aid. Band-Aid is actually a product name, right? All of us call it a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Band-Aid is, I think, Reckitt, Dettol's, whatever product, right? So that is the end game. That is when you know that you've really hit home. हम कल को लोग phone को iPhone ही बुलाने लग जाएं. So that will essentially be like the end game for Apple. And it's tough. And it should also be tough, because if it's that easy, then you are not happily surfing in a consumer first economy where people have the option to choose, an option to innovate, an option to kind of move around it with, right? All companies must be compelled to create the best version of products out there, but at the same time, they should always have competition also, which gives them the reason to be the best out there, right? That is what the good part about any marketing branding job or any business job also is, that you are always on your feet. If you are the
Yeah.
Goliath, you have to find the next David. If you're the David, you have to beat the Goliath.
We talked about the consumer businesses right now कि उनका branding कैसे रहता है. But what about, let's say, a SaaS company, right? Like B2B businesses. So how do they brand themselves? Because their customers are other businesses, and of course, like these businesses will make logical decisions when purchasing a product, right? Like for them, it's a business investment.
It's good that you asked that. It's good that you asked that, because, to be honest, consumer decisions are actually far more logical and conscious in terms of price, product parity, because look at it, right? Look, look at your mom. I'm assuming if, let's say, your mom or your dad who manage the household expenses and who kind of plan the monthly ration, they would be very wise in terms of managing money, figuring out what needs to be done. Businesses, while are assumed to be logical, especially in the SaaS domain, are also very okay with the fact that, okay, let's try out this tool. Where they're more open to experimentation given it will give them direct benefit. Consumers, especially consumers in India, are far more thrifty, far more stringy, far more conscious of the decisions they take. But your question is valid that for a business, there is an utmost need, and therefore a SaaS, a software as a service, plugs that need, right? So for any SaaS company, the first thing essentially is to be very transparent with the need gap that they have identified, right? Not all products can work for all businesses. While you can try to sell your SaaS solution to everyone saying that it works for you as well, it works for you as well, that will never be the case. You'll have to remodel it. You'll have to create a system where it might come across as a white labeled custom fit cook solution, but it will require some sort of adaptation to a business's stature, growth, state, whatever they are, and then fit into their shoes, right? That's where they start their journey, and they do a really good job in that. If you are a SaaS enabler which helps a company market themselves better, you will see, okay, what size their current marketing efforts are, what are their requirements, and your tool will help them kind of do that better, right? So first of all, it starts with very open, honest acceptance of, okay, this is where you are, this is where we'll take you. And wherever you are, we can take you through XYZ, right? So knowing what you can do, showing what you can do, showing what you can't do, that sort of trust and that sort of enablement is something that all SaaS companies have to do as their first step, right? Then comes the fact that, okay, how have they actually helped, their success stories, their sort of, things that have created a good impact for the other customers in the market, because the business world also kind of runs around FOMO a whole lot more, right? Like if they see a competitor doing much faster something that is
Oh,
taking a lot of mana, resources, and all, they also
yeah.
understand that need. Let's say if I have to make 500 sales calls and I have 40 people making them versus the tool that can make them for me, and I know my competitor is making those
Mm,
calls faster than me, then I would want to adopt a technology that can at least make me meet there. Right?
right.
As dumb an example as that could be, it is essentially how that works. You have to beat your competitor to market, or you have to beat your competitor with the service, right? So it revolves around that healthy competition as well. So they have to figure out these things. They have to figure out the gestation cycle also. For most consumer products, gestation cycle is not as long as SaaS products, right? Gestation essentially means if I want noodles, I'll just try to find a market, a quick commerce outlet. I'll go buy noodles, I'll make them, I'll eat them. SaaS products have their own. It could be a week, could be 10 days, could be 3 months, could be 6 months, depending on deployment of that SaaS tool, right? So their job is not just uh, effort to do a one-time sale. It starts with a whole lot more different situation, right? You have to first generate leads, you have to nurture them, you have to keep them engaged, you have to custom tailor the requirements for them, you have to keep them warm. A lot of touch points are introduced to ensure that the final conversion happens. And even after that, you have to keep on offering them some sort of post sales delight, post sales, enablement, deliverability, so that not only they become promoters, but they also don't churn out if they're using a service annually. Let's say you're using Riverside, right? It's a SaaS based tool. They
Yeah.
will do a good job for you to have a good experience so that you keep on kind of using them, keep on paying them, right? So that's their game to play. It doesn't end as a funnel for them. It ends as a flywheel thing. And there's this company called HubSpot, right? They have this methodology called the inbound methodology. I think that is one of the most potent frameworks that exists for any SaaS companies to follow. That you have strangers, you have prospects, and you have customers. But if you look at it like a flywheel, that strangers will bring in prospects, who will bring in customers, who will bring in more strangers, and you optimize this flywheel using marketing, sales, and services. That's how you'll grow. So that's essentially what a SaaS marketeer also has to do. And it's a bit more longer, a bit more technical, a bit more constrained than a consumer brand. The
Mm,
challenges are a bit more different, but it's equally fun. It's equally rewarding. It's equally sort of rush that you feel when you see, your funnel growing, your funnel kind of being optimized from marketing qualified leads to sales qualified leads, and then those numbers actually becoming business numbers. It's a good
yeah.
sort of game to play.
Also, you talked about in one of the last answers that segmentation, targeting, and positioning is really important to start your marketing research, right? So, like when I let's say try to do the STP research, I don't understand where to begin, and if I'm even finding the right insights, if I can rely on those insights. So, how can you make sure that you are doing the research in the right direction, and you can actually get onto a conclusion with that research?
So again, it's like a two-part question, right? So let's just figure out how do we do a research and do it in a fashion that it kind of, can be deemed good enough. This is again going to be very dependent on the sort of product and category or service that you're catering to, right? But the first step is, of course, to just put yourself out there in the market and see what is there, right? So if you're a consumer brand selling, let's say, something that is eaten, then you actually go to the stores, to the wholesalers, to the quick commerce outlets, see what options exist, how the aisle spaces look like, what insuates a person to reach an aisle and pick that product or add to cart on, a quick commerce store. You have to really go knee deep in understanding why people behave the way they do. And all of this actually starts even a step before from doing an estimate says is you being just somebody who's overtly curious about how the world behaves, right? The first thing in being any marketing professional is to be someone who's inherently curious about the other people, their stories. You really need to, kind of go deeper and understand that, okay, this person is working hard, wants to take 2 Europe trips to signal some sort of wealth. But back home in his washroom, he still uses like a Patanjali toothpaste because he's somewhat connected to his Ayurvedic brain, thinking that that will help him, have strong muscles. So you really have to be aware. Okay, what is happening? How are people behaving? What drives decisions for them? Why are certain things considered good? Certain things considered bad? Why are certain things considered taboo? Certain things considered, things that will be tongue in cheek when you kind of talk about them. So you have to be very aware. That's the first step, right? In the zone of awareness is when you, okay, then put yourself out there and you start seeing, okay, all of this exists. When you see the full spectrum of, okay, what exists is then when you start sort of, plotting it in a sort of, you're going to plot it in a quadrant and, okay, understand these players are here. So let's say if it's mobile phones, you can plot it in a quadrant saying, okay, if this is price and this is features, I can probably plot now brands accordingly. Some brands would be low price, low features. Some price would be low price, high features. Some price would be high price, high features. And then you just place that whole map out. Once you place that whole map out, then you see your zone of operation. Would I want to be here? Would I want to be here? What does my product do, right? So you kind of start doing those tricks and you, okay, then start getting more answers. The more you actively do this, the more you actively get answers is when you are in a position to then start taking insights and start taking decisions on them. Nothing is correct, to be honest. Nothing is defined also. Your whole research and perception can still be very biased and the market can beat you to it. Your whole research and perception can still end up creating a great product which the customers might not enjoy, right? And a lot of brands fall for it as well. I mean, Apple made a Newton pad, nobody bought it. Microsoft made a Zune sort of, iPod thing, nobody
Yeah.
bought it. There is a lot that can happen based on customer perception and what changes as times change. And there are companies on the software or the internet side also that kind of fall prey to it, right? I mean, right when Facebook started, Yahoo Messenger, Orkut was so big in the social media sphere, right? MySpace just got eaten, right? Because they probably didn't move as fast as Facebook did. And there could be 100 reasons to now retrospectively analyze. It's not like they didn't know about it. It's not like they couldn't do anything about it. They had better infrastructure, better talent. Facebook was just
Right.
a group of what ragtag engineers making something, right, in the
Mhm.
Bay Area. So you have to always be aware about it, and then that's how you kind of keep on drawing insights and keep on moving forward. It starts inherently with curiosity and an active drive to plot everything on a spectrum, and then from that insights come. Just keep talking to customers, keep observing markets, keep observing how things are, and newness will come your way.
I want to understand from your perspective, firstly, there are a lot of marketing fields which primarily focus on hard skills, like, copywriting hai, like basic UI UX design, right? Like all of these hard
Okay,
skills. And then there is this second layer of marketing, which is about human behavior, right? Like Kunal Shah has also talked about this a lot. So
okay.
if let's say currently I understand what is copywriting, I understand the hard skill side of marketing, but I don't have a very deep understanding of human behavior. So if I want to build that understanding and I want to get into this field of marketing, how can I start where I can, build knowledge and then slowly start to use that knowledge in the real world?
It is actually one of the most plaguing painful things I also have to go through as a recruiter in the marketing industry is because I hate the fact that people think about the jobs that entail in the marketing domain with this lens. This is not the truth. You yourself admitting that, okay, there could be certain hard skills that I know, certain hard skills that I lack, certain sort of, cognitive emotional skills that I know, certain things. It's not the case at all. It is never the case. There is, first of all, no hard skill that can't be learned. There is no sort of, soft skill that can't be learned. That everything
Yeah.
can be inculcated And the best domain that allows you to do it is the domain of marketing, right? And
Hmm.
it only requires one thing. It just requires you to be in a state of observation, right? If you're observative enough, you can be an excellent marketer, because everything else you will learn on the job. There is, first of all, no way that you can learn everything that entails in marketing, because the world only changes. If I did, let's say, my MBA in marketing in 2008,
Hmm.
digital medium was not a medium only active at that point, right? Now, 16
Oh.
years into my career, the world of marketing has fully changed. If I don't keep myself up to track, if I don't understand how social media works, how Instagram works, my every skill, technical skill, knowledge base is going to be worthless. I would be only capable of the days that I have seen, right? So that's never the case. And the best part about marketing also is that as long as you are observant, as long as you are open to consuming what is new, and there's a drive for you to consume what is new, you will do excellent as a marketer. That's the first and the basic truth of it, right? Now, what people consider skills as, let's say, copywriting or, technical skills of English and knowledge, to be honest, it's not needed, right? Think about it very objectively. A marketer's good job, if it comes to communication, is to just ensure that message from point A reaches point B, right? So
Hmm.
any sort of command over language, which could be an insane vocabulary or a great sense of grammar and all, are just checks for a recruiter to know that you know your rigor. But you will never talk like that, right? If I have to actually sell Maggie noodles to you, will I
Hmm.
use very complicated words or a grammar system? I will actually try to talk to you in the most basic sense, as a friend telling another friend कि भाई 2 मिनट में बन जाता है, right? Like like we can just eat
Yeah.
it. It's so easy. So the
Hmm.
job is never actually to use some very potent technical, like in coding and development, there's an actual technical skill set requirement which wants you to be superior, and you can't write a simple line of code and expect it to do some complex things.
Hmm.
In marketing, it's exactly the other way around. You have to really work hard to find the most simplest way in communicating what has to be communicated, right?
Right.
I mean, if I am Fevicol and I actually talk about the bonding properties that my glue has, and I talk about sort of the adhesive system, you will run. But if I say something as simple as इससे चिपकाऊंगा तो चिपके रहेगा, you'll be like, हाँ ये
Hmm.
सही है, समझ रहा हूँ मैं. So, your job is never technical in that nature. There are certain technical skills which revolve around understanding basic maths, understanding how your funnel is moving, some multiplication, addition, subtraction. That's it. Nothing else is needed. You just need to be aware. And for anybody who's beginning a career in marketing, what I always advise them is to look at your marketing career as a T-shaped career, right? So the
Hmm.
horizontal T in this would be different domains: graphic design, content writing, content distribution, ads, different channels. You dabble your feet in every domain that you can see. Can I think about a better poster that looks good? Can I think about a better messaging on that poster that feels good, that hits home? Can I think about a better mechanism than a poster? Can that poster be a video? Can that poster be a reel? So you always think about marketing career as a horizontal T, which is the different domains and aspects of it. And you
Hmm.
choose one vertical stem which you think you can do the best. So if I can do numbers best, I will probably, go on the performance side, on the analytics side, on that side, and do that best. If I think that I can do the content side, then I'll find that and I'll do that the best. Because you really can't build your vertical stem and not have a horizontal stem. You will not grow as a marketer. You only can't survive on a horizontal stem. You won't grow as a leader in this domain. So बेस्ट पार्ट इट इज सो इनोवेटिव. आई थिंक आई जेन्युइनली फील, मतलब हम लोग तो क्लास में पीछे बैठते थे, और वो पीछे बैठने वाले लड़के होते हैं जो क्या कहते हैं मार्केटिंग करते हैं, क्योंकि जो तेज बैठते हैं वो
Hmm.
लोग कुछ और ही कर रहे होते हैं. दे आर एक्चुअली क्रिएटिंग न्यू थिंग्स. दे आर द गुड इंजीनियर्स, गुड डॉक्टर्स, राइट? दोज हु
Yeah.
सिट बैक
Yeah.
आर
Generally,
द
पढ़ाकू
पीपल.
पढ़ाकू वाले लोग.
Whatever. I mean, the ones who sit back are the ones who really don't know. But because they're sitting back, they're observing everything, right? They're looking at
Yeah.
the students in front of them, then looking at the teacher, that when she'll go out, I'll do something. When the window is open and then somebody's playing there. So they are the ones who are the most observant, right? They're looking at everything. Ki 1:30 kab hoga, bell kab bajegi, when will, she
Hmm.
turn her back so that I can start talking, I can eat a sandwich from my back. So those are the ones who are actually most cut out for marketing, because all is needed is observation. There's nothing else. There's no other skill set. The more you're okay to observe, the more you are okay to do things outside your work, which will help you do things in your work, is what a marketer needs to do. And that's it. So you just have to start there.
When I was interning at Stoa, much of the work which I did was on the strategy side, right? Like we were trying to write scripts and write copy,
Yes.
for the Instagram reels and all of that. So there was also a layer behind Stoa, which was the, where we were designing the funnels, for example. So there seems to be a proper blend of these hard skills plus the, understanding of human behavior.
It's actually not that. I mean, that's the thing. You're now, because you are looking at it from a lens of an outsider or maybe a person who's new into the system and therefore are deeming it as hard skill. But if you actually again just observe and look at it, is it a hard skill? It is not. What is essentially a segmented funnel? It is, I am trying to communicate, I'm trying to make the STOA program known to my audience, right? In that zone itself, there would be some people who would not know about it. There would be some people who would know about it now, but are not considering it. There are some people who are considering it, but don't have reasons enough to consider it. There would be some people who are on the fence कि हाँ मुझे करना तो है, but कब करना है पता नहीं. There would be some people who would be like करना ही नहीं है, I don't want to do it. There are some people who would just be on the verge of, like, okay, making the payment and doing it, right?
Hmm.
That is for any shop. I mean, that is for any business, right? And just for them, you would just want to alter the messaging, change certain things, give them different sort of reasons, different sort of pegs of communication. That's essentially what it is,
Yeah.
right? So what might feel like a very differentiated, tactical, strategic approach is actually at the end of the day very simple breakdown of tasks so that your life becomes easy and it also hits home with the sort of segment that you're targeting to, right? That's it. There's nothing else. Everybody does it the same way.
Got it. I mean, what you're talking about essentially is कि जो basic interaction है of humans, उसको just observe करो and just try to understand it, and then you can
Yeah.
use it in the messaging, right?
I mean, everything around it. In fact, if you look at it, most people don't end up taking marketing jobs saying that, I am not creative, I won't be able to do anything creative. It is a very creative field. Just go back and look at your mothers, dude. I think mothers are the most creative, right? I mean, my mom is notoriously creative of using the last night's sabji as a sandwich in the morning sandwich thing, and she would make a full story around it. That, okay, this was a sabji, I made it into this grill, whatever. That you know it's the same. But her
Yeah.
creativity lies in the fact of using the same messaging, same dish, but then presenting it in a different fashion. She could just make that sabji into a roti roll, add one or two sauces, and give me a reason for to me to have it, right? Hella
Yeah.
creative. I mean, this is just that. And India is full of such creative brains. It starts at our home and ends also like in our head only. So that's it. That's all that's needed.
Yeah, that mom example is 100% relatable.
Yeah. I mean, that is
Yeah.
what it is.
So I, wanted to ask you this, कि जैसे what I've observed is in marketing, when I started, STOA was the very first internship I got as a marketer. Marketing में I see there's this chicken and egg problem, which is companies want you to have some experience, but you have to be working at a company to gain experience. So you ultimately, it just becomes very hard for you to enter into a company and actually learn things. So how can that happen?
That's true. And the reason that companies also check for this, and even I in my own recruitment time check for this, is actually not to check for the experience that you have gained, but the initiatives that you took to gain that experience, right? And I'll give you an example of it. If let's say I want to hire you as a marketing intern or a marketing associate in my team, right? I would essentially be looking for a hunger and a drive in you to find what's new and do what is needed, right? What is the way that can be done? It can be checked through the number of sort of, exposing environments that you have been on to. I personally feel that if you want to start a career in marketing,
Yeah.
don't do any internships, don't even go to an agency, it's not needed. Just go to the first shop that you see in your locality. Could be a sari shop, could be, a pet store, could be a kirana store. Tell them that I will do marketing for you and do anything possible for them. Design their board, change their board for them, give them some sort of QR code to give a better sort of experience of the products that they have. Maybe you can create a WhatsApp group for them. Just think of tactical ways that how can I help this business actually sell more, right? The more you start doing that, the more you'll realize you'll open doors of, okay, I learned some bit of messaging, I learned some bit of technology, I learned some bit of integration of messaging and technology. That is all that is needed. You can start from zero and learn so much about marketing that the next job you apply, and you can just tell them that, dude, I started an Instagram page for this company. There was 0 followers, now there are 1,000 followers, or whatever it is, 500 followers. But I grew it organically. I created content, I posted content, I showed cadence, I thought about, the audience. That is it. That's all what a recruiter needs, right? So there is actually no chicken egg problem in the real sense. All problems arises because recruiters try to evaluate initiative taking energy, and that is very difficult to gauge. Therefore, they settle for people who've probably been exposed to some sort of environment, and then therefore they believe that this person can take initiative because they've been exposed, but it's not actually needed. If you're somebody who in college has just run around fests or ensuring that sponsors come, fest is organized properly, you have designed a nice sort of flex background for the stage, you are managing the event, you are kind of just doing a lot of these things which promote the fest, in itself is a good solid proof of work. All a marketing recruiter needs is intention and some decent proof of work, right? So as long as you build that, as long as you work towards that, nothing else is needed.
One other question I wanted to ask you is, as you told that you know the type of companies where, let's say, like for example, you're working in a product focused company now. Previously you were working in store, right? So that was a program focused, like service based company. So you told that the marketing foundations are same, but still, how can, like, who is in a similar stage of career building like me, they're still deciding upon what sort of startups to work at. like सबका एक थोड़ा सा एक niche बन जाता है, as in, I've seen people in startup industry, they are specialized, let's say, into fintech side of things, right? Or
Okay.
someone is very much into edtech side of things. So the very first question is it a good idea to even double down on a particular segment of startups? And secondly, how do you decide if you should double down?
I mean, it is always a good idea to double down on something that inherently excites you in the morning, right? So, if let's say I am somebody who's a fitness junkie and I
Mhm.
see a company like Cult or I see a startup which is essentially revolving around the space of health, fitness, and wellness, inherently more ideas will come to me for them because that is an integral part of my life as well, right? So if you have a
Okay.
niche in your hand which kind of brings you into terms with the startups domain as well. If you're into music and there's a startup which does music, if you are into personal finance, you like money and there's a startup, because you will always have an inherent curiosity to learn about your own liking, right? If you're into sports, you like sports, you will inherently be consuming a whole lot more of sports content. You would be following those pages, you would be talking to your friends about it. So you would be opinionated, and that energy will help you do this better. So as long as you have a niche, you have a sort of, stream of things that you like, of course, go ahead, double down on it because that is going to give you some quick wins. It will also give you some confidence. What is dangerous is when people stop there, when they don't expand their foray. That is
Okay,
going to
okay.
limit your growth as a marketer. So even if you're in a particular domain, a domain which is of your liking and the company is also helping you do that, your customers will have other domains as well, right? Your potential audiences will also have other domains. So keep yourself
Hmm.
exposed to that as well. If I am a sports junkie and I like sports, if I'm working in a sports company, which maybe is, let's say, into fantasy gaming, then fantasy gaming could be a part of my customer's life, could be a very integral part, could be a very mellow part, but they would have other facets in their life as well, right? They would probably be working, they would probably be in a situation where they would want some sort of quick financial gain, they would probably be, thinking about their next trip. That is why they are into financial sort of, schemes like a fantasy gaming app to make some quick money around it. So if I understand those domains of my customer's life a whole lot more better, I can probably do my job a whole lot more better, right? So if I'm working at Dream 11, I would be great in a situation where I would understand cricket, understand fantasy gaming, understand everything. But I'll
Yeah.
also be in a much better position when I know that my customer also has very limited time in their day to play Dream 11, right? So then I will
Hmm.
come with really cool ideas like ये मैं कर लेता हूँ आप ड्रीम 11 पे टीम बना लीजिए राइट बिकॉज दैट इज essentially will hit home. I would understand my customer doesn't need a 30-minute gaming experience. In 5 minutes, if they can quickly make their team, that is what I need to optimize for. So
Right.
if you have an inclination, if you have a domain that inspires you, intrigues you, gets you to consume more, excellent. Go and start that journey with that company. But keep your brain open, keep your mind open to the other domains that involve your potential customer, your own head as well. That will help you segment your, like, that will help you transition better in life. Will you grow much more as a marketer? That's it. That's all that's needed.
All right. And also, do you suggest someone to, jump from, let's say, like for example, let's say someone is working at the Whole Truth Foods, and then they, let's say, want to jump onto the Mesa school, right? And then at Stable Money,
Okay.
for example. So, do you recommend that ki someone is switching the niches?
I am personally of the opinion that as a professional, you should only switch if you feel either your growth is stagnating or the work environment is not enabling your growth. I mean, in the last 8 years, I've had three jobs, and first was 5 years, second was 2.5 years, this one is going right now. So I am not someone who has jumped a lot because I was never limited by either a growth stagnation or an environment stagnation. That I was quote unquote blessed in my own head for it. If you feel that your growth is being stagnated or your environment is not helping you grow, then
Right.
those could be reasons for you to switch, and you can switch into any category that excites you next or would want to have you, right? It's not directly related to that. So first of all, the decision only to shift is very subjective. However, if you really want to, and if you want to, let's say, try out new hats and try different domains, yeah, I mean, the best way is to just skill up yourself, ensure to the next recruiter that you really understand their domain through and through, you understand people in their domain through and through, do a good job in creating some proof of work around it, and then get your hands dirty. Why not?
Hmm. Got it.
Agencies
Got
do
it.
a good job in that. More people
Mm-hmm.
who work in agencies, they are thrown with 4 or 5 different clients. Right? I remember in my second year of agency, I had two SaaS companies which would be selling some sort of HR and software solutions, and they were multinational companies. So that was a very technical thing. But parallel to them, I also had a very regional soap brand. I also had a very national level
Oh,
sort of consumer durable brand which would sell,
yeah.
electrical appliances. They would sell different sort of,
Hmm.
microwaves, heaters, all of those things. So it was very different. Like my day would just rotate around so many different businesses, and it keeps you excited. So it's good. If it doesn't
Right.
keep you excited, you will feel overwhelmed. It's very subjective.
That was a very insightful conversation. Thank you
Thank you.
so much, Navendu, for taking out the time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.